Hello again. We are listening so much information and share so much with those that are near us, and now I have the honor of calling someone to talk to us, someone that is increasingly being liking Africa because he comes from a region that is quite connected to Africa. So I have the pleasure of calling to the stage the governor of the state of Pará, Elder Barbalho.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank you, João, and the Institute Brazil Africa for the invitation and opportunity to take part of this conference celebrating this important forum discussing the relationships between Brazil and Africa. Cultural, historical, economic relationships, and of course, the similarities that our regions have and that shall encourage us to build a diplomatic dialogue and as a consequence to build solutions that are key to the development and quality of life of our populations. I particularly celebrate the fact of being here as the governor of the state of Pará in the north of Brazil, but also as the president of the consortium of governors of the Amazon that gathers the 9 states of the Brazilian Amazon, with more than 60% of the national territory, with some peculiarities that are somehow very similar to peculiarities of the African continent. We have already heard that our regions have similarities that shall make us build common solutions together, such as social challenges that are possibilities of promoting sustainable development, looking after people, to bring together traditions, peoples, culture, people from urban and rural areas, a very relevant heritage, and the main challenge of the agendas of their governors is looking after people. Having said it all, I'd like to say that the Amazon region in Pará state, or the state of Pará, have a mosaic of callings, such as the state of Pará that has over 60% of its territory of native forest. At the same time, a state that produces food. We are the second largest bovine flock in Brazil, and we are the 10th biggest producer of agriculture of our country, especially the leadership in the cultivation of acai and cocoa, and leadership in the plantation of palm and pineapple, and especially considering that we are the biggest
Water basin.
water
Basin.
water basin in the planet. So we are also very good at mining. We have the biggest stock of nickel, iron ore, copper, gold, and certainly every year we are advancing in the challenges of building a sustainable mining with traceability to ensure the integrality of the use of our soil so that this can create economical opportunities that are dealing with the challenges of the environment in a responsible way. I want to stress this relationship between Brazil and Africa, saying that the world is challenged to follow solutions to the climate change, challenging countries that have tropical forests to become protagonists in the climate balance, reducing emissions, and becoming carbon zero in a planet. And particularly, this challenge is set in the global south, highlighting Brazil and others in Latin America, among other countries of the Amazon, but particularly with the same challenge to African countries that has tropical forest, therefore the same challenge that the world is debating about. I want to highlight this challenge because I understand that the climate urgency requires immediate solutions at the same levels, but in different realities. In the global north, countries who have chosen to develop their progress based on the industry, and this industry have become responsible for the highest levels of greenhouse gas emissions. So they are producing all the problems and imbalance to the environment. It is clear that those countries are suggesting that the global south, the countries that still have forests, shall play the role of leading compensations for the emissions. I see this as a challenge, but above all, I see this as a great opportunity, provided that we are able to present what we want to use our forests. Which model do we want to have for this treasure of our territories? Therefore, here we have a huge opportunity to build the transition of the use of the soil in our countries. First, we need to preserve our forests. We will only do that and succeed if a living forest values more than a dead forest, and the current reality is one that, due to lack of policies, forests have been seen as an obstacle to a old-fashioned kind of progress. So the goal is to make a living forest to value more than a dead one. And we do this by making the biodiversity of tropical forest can be known, studied, generating a new concept from research, a new concept of the forest richness making this to become something very important, such as bioeconomy.
This represents something that's new in the world. This is still something new, but that can leverage extraordinary experiences. And the state of Pará, by choosing our bioeconomy as our new economic vocation, we have conducted a very detailed study and research, debating with the local communities, the indigenous communities, with the communities that live along the rivers, the agricultural, the small farmers. So how we've researched how we can protect our forests and our nature, and we have come up with the first bioeconomy plan in the country. So we have many products that come from the forest, and we did a diagnostic survey of our reality. The bioeconomy in Pará generates between direct and indirect jobs, 47,000 jobs. Bioeconomy in our state currently leverages 12 billion reais in coming from our bioeconomy. It's a very small amount compared to the size of the opportunities. But looking forward, the same plan opens up many extraordinary possibilities that we would be able to, by the year 2040, have business opportunities. If in 2022, when we came up with this plan, if it represented 12 billion reais in activities related to bioeconomy activities in our state, then by 2040 we may be able to reach $30 billion coming or generated from this bioeconomy. We can produce products from wood that is reforested, with pharmaceutical products, with cosmetic products, with the production or agricultural, regenerative agricultural production. Our state of Pará, we are the main producer of açaí in Brazil and in the world. Today, the world consumes açaí from the state of Pará. Pará is the largest producer of cocoa in Brazil, and we have examples of chocolate that is being produced from one of the regions in the Amazon that historically has had the greatest amount of deforestation. So now we have these two crops helping to regenerate the soil. And we must remember that when we regenerate the soil, we recover these areas that have been affected and damaged. It's important to have partnership in between Brazil and your countries in Africa in terms of bioeconomy in order to preserve our environment and our forests. I also want to highlight the challenge of dealing with the use of land and the soil. Our proposal doesn't include excluding different productive activities, but we want to include them. We want to reach our food safety, but we want to also value our forests, our everything that we have, all our natural resources. We want to generate green jobs. We want to generate sustainable job opportunities. So in our state, we are developing public policies to deal with agriculture, with cattle breeding, with preserving the forest. I also want to mention the need to put on the table the carbon market, carbon credit market. We need to discuss this market, and this is one of the highest priorities, most urgent priorities when it comes to climate change. Pará will host the largest, in 2025, we will host COP30. And for the first time, the COP event, this event that will have around 190 delegations from 190 different countries, whether it's government leaders, political leaderships, or from the third sector, or from social sectors, or from the private market. It will be the time to establish what the forest is actually worth. And I say this because over time, at the COP events, there have been discussions about energy transitions. They will discuss in the next COP forum in Dubai in December, this coming December, they will discuss the regenerative agricultural. So in Belém, we will have the opportunity to talk about forests. And it's not only an opportunity for Brazil, but for Africa, for your African countries. If you have tropical forests in your countries, I invite you to come to this event, and we are going to discuss the carbon market and the need to include the tropical forest as in the carbon market. And we need to avoid having the carbon market seen only with the bias of reducing the emissions. We need to include our forests in this. So where is the contribution that our forest is giving by capturing carbon? So we need to put this discussion on the table. We need to come together to say to the planet that the tropical forest, whether it's in Brazil or in Africa, represents the main stock of carbon capture, and therefore the carbon market can become a great global commodity and eventually become a market that generates jobs and values our nature and our environment. So I am sure that this discussion needs to be deepened, and that Brazil and Africa need to walk together when it comes to this topic. This is a cause that I am willing to fight for, because the live forest is the most important thing in the biomes of our respective countries. However, it will only be supported and remain alive if we take care of people, if we mobilize people, if we in the Brazilian Amazon region, we have many Brazilians who live there who need jobs, who need to have access to income, to social services, to good quality of life. And I'm sure it's the same in the regions of tropical forests in Africa. So the certainty that sustainability, the environmental sustainability, allied to the economic sustainability, but above all, understanding that this is the moment to look at people and guarantee the social sustainability with inclusion, with initiatives that transform the lives of people. And by transforming their lives, we will be able to bring together people and the forest and people, and we will be able to guarantee the solution to social problems, and we will be able to guarantee the contribution of the tropical forest to the climate change and the problems brought about by climate change. So thank you very much for the opportunity at this Brazil-Africa Forum to speak, and hopefully we can come together to face our challenges, put our efforts together. And my state, the state of Pará, is the state that has very similar challenges and callings as your African nations. And so my hope is that we'll be able to come together to find sustainable solutions. Once again, thank you very much for the opportunity.